Returning to the original circle of disciples, Peter had an encounter with an Italian centurion named Cornelius. After a vision where Peter is commanded by God not to call anything or anyone he made unclean, Peter sees Cornelius and preaches to him the gospel. Upon Cornelius' acceptance of the gospel, Peter baptizes him and all his household. Peter would then become ever convinced that the Gentiles have a place in the church. Peter then moves to Antioch, while Paul begins traveling with his companion Barnabas to preach the good news to both Jews and Gentiles. Unfortunately, the first dispute begins then. Zealous Jews insisted that Gentiles ought to become Jewish, first through circumcision and keeping of the Sabbath, and only then can they become Christians. This brings the first missionary trip to a halt, as Paul and Barnabas return to the apostles and the first council in church history begins in Jerusalem. There, the disciples unanimously and under the guidance of the Spirit decreed that Gentiles ought not to keep the customs of the Jews, but rather abstain from blood, animals that are strangled, and sexual immorality. Paul and Barnabas then resume their journey, but this time with John Mark, Barnabas' nephew according to tradition. During the journey, John Mark abandons Paul and Barnabas. As the second journey would begin, Paul and Barnabas got in an argument over whether Mark should join or not. They separate path and Paul takes Silas with him while Barnabas takes Mark. Paul later went on a third missionary journey with Luke and Silas, which is recorded in great detail in the book of Acts. The first journey of Paul was approximately 2,000 kilometers, and the second and third journey both involved over 4,000 kilometers. Traveling was largely done on foot. The last details we hear about Paul come from Acts, where he is under house arrest in Rome preaching the gospel. Historians are divided as to what happens afterward. Some suggested that he was freed and that he went as far as Spain, and then was arrested once more and was executed then. Others believe that he was eventually put on trial and executed after the house arrest.